Hello, everyone. This is Joe Boston. If you want to make real estate your life, then tune in to Real Estate for Life. I'm excited to have a great topic tonight. We're going to be talking not only to one of my friends, but a board certified lawyer that deals in many different issues in regards to uh, being a landlord, handling tenants. She actually owns a title company. But also, I have a friend and a student of mine that's going to be also with us tonight, so they can hear and learn just like you are when we're having these discussions. So tonight's topic is how a lawyer deals with tenants, right? That might take advantage of a landlord in court. And so we thought that would be really good to talk about because if you remember, just a short time ago, when COVID actually impacted the real estate industry, it was really tough for some that weren't protected to obtain their rent. It depended on the state. Some were more strict than others, but here in Texas, obviously there was some protection. And so that led me to believe that I needed to talk about what's happened since then. Now, I'm a big proponent of the Housing Choice Voucher Program, also known as Section 8. And those of us that had a lot of Section 8 tenants were protected some because they pay roughly about 90% of the rent. And so that 10% you could still be subject to losing. But those that did not have a program or were not on a program like that, they could potentially lose all of their income. And so that put a lot of landlords at a disadvantage, and some of them even tried to sell them. But that's actually a really good nugget to know to actually start to market to. But also, I'm the leader and organizer of the Dallas Real Estate Investment Group, which we have 2 meetings a month, and we'd like to have you there as well. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Gaylene Rogers. She is again a board certified attorney, and in addition to that, she owns a Lonergan law firm, which she's a sponsor of our group, and she deals with this very frequently. And when we were talking about this, she's like, "Oh, I've got to share this with a lot of people because I run across this." And in addition to that, landlords need to understand how to approach this different environment we're in because there's a lot of protections for the tenants, and some of these tenants actually are smarter than the landlords when they walk into court, and then us landlords find ourselves walking out with our tails between our legs. In addition to that, I have Ryan Brown. He's actually an investor and a student as well, and he actually just bought a property, and he's considering renting it out, and that's why I wanted him to join as well because he needs to hear some of these things that are going on just like you on what we could expect possibly if we go into court. So I'm really glad that we're able to talk about this. And so, Gaylene, just a real quick question from me to start this off. Are there still issues related to COVID, like I was mentioning about, with this moratorium that's not in place anymore? But are you still seeing any of these issues?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on, Joe. And you're right. Um, COVID, most of the COVID restrictions have gone by the wayside in most jurisdictions, with the exception of Dallas County. Dallas County still has their COVID ordinance in place and have not given any indication that they're going to repeal it. And that comes as a shock to a lot of landlords because there is a requirement under the Dallas city ordinance that you have to give a COVID notice of possible eviction 21 days before you can even send a notice to vacate. And that catches a lot of landlords.
That's still in place.
That's still in place. Now,
Okay.
having
Good to
said
know.
that, yeah, having said that, most JP judges don't pay any attention to that. I'm just here to tell you. I appear in most of the I've appeared in most of the JP courts in Dallas, and most of the JP judges they don't care. They want to see your notice to vacate and how you delivered it, if it was done pursuant to the statute, and as long as you do that, they don't care. But the problem is nearly. I don't know that I have done a case where there wasn't an appeal after the landlord we get a judgment for the landlord. The county court judges are a different animal. They stick to the COVID thing in Dallas, for city of Dallas. If you haven't done exactly what the ordinance calls for, they will kick you out.
Oh, wow. I
Yeah.
wasn't aware of that. So just Dallas County, or is it Tarrant
No, it's not
County's,
even the county. It's not even the county. It's just the city of Dallas.
the city of Dallas? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
They're the only
really good
ones
to
that have
know.
that ordinance. Yeah, they're the only ones that have that ordinance. It's crazy.
That's absolutely crazy. Yeah. Um, and and I appreciate the information and being able to join you guys tonight too. And as Joe was mentioning before, Gaylene, I just got my first property. I'm looking to become a landlord myself at some point. I'm doing some of the renovations and getting it ready to go. And I wanted to actually ask you, so being a landlord, what are some of the biggest issues that you see come up when it comes to dealing with tenant and landlord issues inside of the courtroom?
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's a good one. First of all, improper notice. That is the biggest issue that I see. A lot of landlords hire me. They do their own initial notice to vacate, and then they want me to go to court. But if they haven't given the notice exactly pursuant to the statute, then they will get kicked out. The statute says you can either deliver it in person or mail it, regular or certified mail, or if no one is there, you can put it in an envelope, put the words "important document," and post it on the inside of the front door. Rarely, I had a landlord that he posted on the outside. The judge took it out. And what I do to make sure we're in compliance is we send every notice out by certified mail, and we take a copy of the evidence that it was mailed certified mail. As long as you do that, you've complied with the statute.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend going inside, would you? That's pretty dangerous, huh?
Yeah, I don't recommend that either, but that's what the statute says. So
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
I don't even recommend. Quite frankly, I won't send somebody to do personal notice. I just send it certified mail, and then I've complied.
Now,
Um,
is there, can you hire a constable to do that too?
well, I don't know about delivering the notice. I have hired third party couriers and things like that. But if that's your only method of notice, then you need whoever gives the notice to be available in court to testify to that.
It's
That's
good
why
information to know.
I prefer certified mail, because I don't need any witnesses. I just give them the notice to vacate, and I give them the evidence that it was sent certified mail, and I have complied.
That's awesome. And Joe, I know you have some more questions, but just to chime in too, I'm letting everybody know I'm watching the chat. So if you guys have questions, I'd love to bring them into the room too, because I know you guys are like me and you're looking to learn. So now is the time to ask. So thank you for that.
That's
Sure.
really good. Also, Gayleen, so if a landlord takes a portion of the rent and maybe not all of it, or accepts some of the money, could that be a reason why it
Absolutely.
gets thrown out?
Yes, absolutely. If they take any portion, in fact, I just had that issue today, and if they take any portion, then yeah, the JP judge will just throw that out. Another thing that I've seen lately is, you have whenever you file your petition, you have to be sure you file it exactly correctly. Fill it out exactly correctly. If you're suing for rent, make sure you state that and the amount you're doing in the place on the petition that it calls for. If you're suing for something other than payment of rent, make sure that is described in the place on the petition that it calls for. If another attorney shows up, and now there are attorneys. I'm seeing more attorneys on the other side that are with like the what do they? There's a couple of nonprofits that they send attorneys to court with the tenants. So if another attorney shows up, they're going to hold you to strict compliance. So that's one of the things that they can complain about. Obviously, the COVID issue, the military status. That's another thing. When you file a petition, you have to sign an affidavit that says you've checked to make sure this person is not in active military service. And if you don't have that, they could just throw it out. I almost had that happen a couple of times where um, we said we didn't know for sure, and she told me, she said, "Well, you're lucky the defendant showed up. Otherwise, I would have thrown this out."
Oh
So
wow.
there is a website that you can go to that's operated under the Department of Defense that you can search and search a name, but you have to know the birth certificate. I'm sorry, the birthday or the social security number. Now, if it's a eviction from a tenant that the landlord signed a lease with, the landlord should have that information in their application. Okay, so they should be able to do that. But what if it's a foreclosure and you're trying to evict the person that was foreclosed upon? You don't necessarily know what their birthday is or what their social security number is. So I have had to resort to using some skip tracing software to track that down. But that is another minefield that the judges will use to throw you out. And then you have to make sure you got your evidence. Some of my clients they don't want to prepare too much, and if the other side says, "Oh no, I paid this, I paid this, I paid this," and we don't have a ledger or something to present as evidence, then the judge will throw that out.
Now, does email correspondence, will that work as evidence, or can you use that?
Oh, as far as the ledger and whatnot,
Correct.
yes, you can use that. You can use that. And then, of course, what I said about the COVID, and it's not just the COVID 21-day notice. I, I was with a client a month ago, and we were in county court, and the county court at law judge walked in and said, "Well, I have to dismiss." We hadn't even said anything. She said, "I have to dismiss this because the JP court did not include the required COVID language in their citation." And I
Wow.
had,
Wow.
me and my client, we had no control over that, no control at all, and she just kicked it out before we even opened our mouths. So it's a little tricky out there right now.
That sounds
And
like it. So I'm going to go back to just really quickly accepting a portion of the rent. So if it's on auto pay, let's say, and or they send it via Cash App without approval from the landlord, is it
I would
okay
send
for
it
the
right back.
landlord to
I'd send it right
so
back.
just send okay. So or they drop off cash or they drop off a check. So what's your recommendation in those terms? So you just send it right back
I would
or
send
because you
it
can't
right
decline it.
back and
Okay.
decline. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Makes sense.
And the
That's
other
good.
thing
So
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
how long does it generally take from beginning to fin like the whole process, would you say?
Well, okay, City of Dallas, COVID, that adds 21 days to the whole process. But generally, you send your notice, you file your petition, they set a hearing generally within about a week. You get your judgment, then the tenant has 5 days in which to appeal. And if so, if they don't appeal, then after 5 days, the landlord can go request a writ of possession. And generally speaking, then the constable will put you on their schedule to go set them out. So that's usually it's around 30 to 45 days. But these days, most tenants are appealing. And that adds a whole nother 30 days to the process because they have to send the case up to the county court, then a hearing has to be set there, and then you have another trial. So that's probably more like 60 days.
So if they lose the judgment, so the judge rules for the landlord,
Mm-hmm.
I thought there was a 5-day cooling off period.
Yeah, there's a 5-day that they have to appeal. You can't the landlord can't do anything for 5 days.
Okay.
At the end of the 5 days, the landlord can go ask for a writ of possession if the tenant has not appealed. If they've appealed, then it just goes up to county court and you get reset.
Okay. So is there a fee associated with that if the tenant, so
Well,
the
at the tenant,
landlord has to pay another fee?
no, the landlord doesn't have to pay a fee, but the party
Okay.
that's appealing, first of all, they're supposed to pay an appeal bond, but that's kind of gone by the wayside lately. Nearly every tenant is filing an affidavit of inability to pay, commonly known as a pauper's affidavit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so that they don't have to pay the bond. Now, a landlord can challenge that and they'll set a hearing about your challenge, but I don't recommend that because that just delays your getting your property. Okay?
Right.
Because you have to have that hearing, then if you lose, which most JP judges are on the tenant side on that kind of thing, unless you can absolutely disprove that they can't afford it. So that just delays your county court hearing, and so I always suggest to my clients that we don't fight it.
Okay.
And then they also, and to answer your question, Joe, there's a fee that has to be paid to the county court, and it's around, I would say, estimated around $500, and there's no getting around that. You have to, whoever appeals has to pay that.
Yeah,
That's really interesting. Yeah. Hey, and if you guys don't mind, I'm going to sneak in a little bit of a curveball question, kind of pivot here,
Okay.
because this has kind of come up in the class a little bit. But Gaylene, you might be able to help us with this. So, when evicting a former owner following a foreclosure, what kind of documentation do you need to do that?
Yeah, because that is a completely different type of eviction.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have a landlord tenant relationship. You're just trying to get your property that you purchased at the foreclosure sale. So the main thing I would say there is make sure that your petition states that it's not for rent, it's for possession of your property following a foreclosure. Okay? And then you also the tenants, especially the ones that have lawyers, will will make you present how you have the authority to try to evict them. And so you have to have the deed, the trustee's deed you got from the trustee. And I even, just to be on the safe side, especially in county court, I get a certified copy of it to present as an exhibit. That's your basis for how you have authority to kick these people out. And then, of course, you got to make sure about the military. It's kind of some of the same things. Have your ledger. And in county court, the client has to appear and give testimony. And some clients don't understand that. I have a short narrative that I ask them questions about, and they answer the questions, but they have to give testimony.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Do you recommend offering cash for keys?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That would be, generally speaking, would be worthwhile.
Right.
They will
Because
take.
I remember I actually worked for a bank at one point in time back in the 08, 09 time frame. And, so we get paid a little bit of money to go and knock on a door and ask them that if they would be willing to move for a couple $100 or even their moving expenses.
Right.
So that might actually help and assist them and make them go, okay, well, we'll do it, instead of fight this eviction that's inevitable.
That's
But to
right.
your point, some of these people, when it's a foreclosure, they might not have anywhere to go.
Well,
Nowadays, I mean,
that's true. That is true.
it's
Absolutely.
it's tough.
And well, some people also, I've got one that I've been trying to get out for an investor that she has an argument with the lender that foreclosed. Okay. And she's fighting us with that. Okay. And um, ultimately she's going to lose. I told her counsel, I said, well, my client's not going to stop. Ultimately, he's going to win. So, do you want to make a deal for your client to get out? And so far, they haven't.
Man, I just really makes me just so frustrated. So, I made my living on rentals for the longest time, and I know with the price points that are increasing now, it makes it tougher to rent out and generate a decent cash flow. And so
Hmm.
one of the things we always say is you have to take into consideration not only your rent but your vacancies and your
Hmm.
missed rental payments and your expenses for renovation or fixing while the tenant's in there. But when we're talking about the time frame that is vacant, like, I haven't really had anyone appeal, but I think it's a lot more common, like you're mentioning. So how many are they appealing a lot more? Are you seeing that? And then what do they have to do to appeal? Because I know there's that 5 day grace period, but are you seeing a lot more appeals now? And how
Oh,
is that?
I don't. I think maybe I've had one in the last year that did not appeal. Just
Wow.
Okay.
one. They are appealing during that 5 day grace period after judgment, and generally speaking, they're filing a pauper's affidavit, and so um, yeah, the appeal, and a lot of them also are requesting a jury trial. I fought two jury trials in the last 6 months. Now I won both of them, um, but in any event, they're just trying everything. They're throwing everything at the wall and seeing what, if anything, will stick.
So it's just delaying basically them having
Correct.
to move out. So when you're saying the 5 day appeal within the 5 days, so if it is a pauper's lien or whatever that they're claiming, then you still haven't received your rent. So this the mere fact that they applied for an appeal, you cannot evict.
You
So
cannot evict.
really, that's just a loophole, really, in my opinion. Even though they did not pay, and that's black and white.
Correct. But they still have an absolute right to appeal to county court. Absolute. And it's a whole new trial. Nothing that happened in the JP court is relevant. It's a whole new trial de novo. Um,
But
so
they have to pay for that, like you said. So that's a
yeah, they have to pay at least a fee to the county court at law for that. But none of them are none of them are putting up appeal wands. None of them. Very rare for that to happen now. And the JPs will not overrule those. They just won't. So,
no, they
you know
won't.
what I think is lately. Um, I think when we get up to county court, it's it's more in favor of the tenant, and I'm not exactly sure what the reason for that is. Whether it's just that Dallas County doesn't want homeless people out on the street, could be. Um, but
So they
there's
rather have more foreclosures.
yeah,
So
exactly.
correct.
Yeah,
So they
exactly.
want more foreclosures, but yeah, yeah. So
Exactly. So, um, I mean, you can still we still win, but they make it the courts make it really difficult. Like that judge that said, well, I don't even have jurisdiction because the 3 words that are supposed to be in the citation are not there. So the next time I was down at that JP court, I went in the clerk's office and I said, hey, I just had a case thrown out because y'all's citation did not include the quote COVID language. Yeah, we fixed that. I said, so this one, because I was there, I won. I said, so on this one, you'll make sure that's in there. Yes. I said, okay, I'm trusting you.
Wow.
Wow.
I just see how
One
important
other,
that is. Go ahead,
yeah,
Joe.
one other side note, just really quickly. So I know you're busy. I'm going to let you go, but what I heard, there's really no eviction record per se. So if someone gets evicted and then they lose their court case, and then there's a judgment assigned to them, I've received actually information to fill out about that court case, and then I send it back to a company. But is that recorded anywhere? And the reason why I ask that is because how do they get that placed on their record? I've never seen that there's some per se eviction claim on their
Right.
record. So if you're a landlord and you don't file, you just walk away. How do
Yep.
you know if someone's been evicted or not?
Well, that's a great question. And actually, I was talking to someone about that the other day. You can now the justice courts are not courts of record, so there's no there's no record of the proceeding. The county court is a court of record. Okay, so there is a way to find that, and you can always request. And I've gone back and told Devontae, my assistant, to contact all of our landlords that we've been representing that they need to request what's called an abstract of judgment. An abstract of judgment is just an evidence of the judgment that you file in the real property records.
Okay.
Then
So
there
that's
would
something.
be
Okay.
evidence. Then there would
So
be
you're
evidence.
saying we would request an abstract of judgment, then we could file it
At the
ourselves.
county clerk, yeah, at the county clerk's office, and
That
then it
is
is a record.
really good to know.
Yeah,
Okay. That's
yeah,
that's really good to know. That's a nugget right there.
yeah,
Because here's the reason why I'm leading to with that question is that's one way that people that are interested in acquiring properties, because there are what's called tired landlords.
yes,
So if there's an eviction, there obviously has to be some list, right, that's generated or you have access to. Is there a way for people to find out, who from that day's court session, or who the landlords are? Or because I've been called before when I've actually gone to an
yeah.
eviction court. So do you know if there's a way for you to find out if
Joe, that's a
there's
good question because I don't know. I don't. I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is
okay,
based upon the petition. There should be a way to search based upon the petition filing. Okay, but
okay, got
now
it.
certainly when if it gets to county court, there I'm sure there is a way to search there because it is a court of record, and I'm sure there's lists that people are compiling of those things. Absolutely.
Right, because that would definitely be a motivated seller, right?
Right.
Potentially that wants to sell their property. So for those
Yeah.
of you that are listening, that's definitely a way that you might be able to, you know, market to people that might want to sell their properties. So
Right.
that's a really good thing. So
Right.
I'm really excited we got to talk about this topic. And, Gayleen and I have known each other for a long time now. And so how do people get a hold of you? So if they want to, actually, like we said, you have a title company. So if they want to close with your title company, or they need legal assistance to do an eviction or anything else real estate related, I would say that. How do they get a hold of you?
Okay. Well, my firm is the Lonergan Law Firm, and our phone number at our office is 214-503-7509. And my email address is Rogers, Rogers, at Lonergan, LONERGANLAW.com. And just give our office a call. My assistant Devontae loves talking to people, and we'll
Yes,
see
he
what we can
does.
do for you.
Yeah, you have to put him on a timer, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yes, put him on a timer. And then Ryan, so what do you think? Are you thinking you want to be a landlord?
Even after all that we talked about today, I think it's still a good idea for the situation that I'm in. Because as I've been learning through the Dallas real estate group, is that it's really so many different areas and avenues of doing real estate investing. But for what I'm entering into, I think it would be a good first step for me because I have this property. I now am seeing how much due diligence I need to do up front. But I think this would be a good strategy overall. Yeah, and as long as I can call Gaylene, I think I'll be all right if I ever have to go to court. So
There
I
you go,
appreciate you
right?
guys letting me here for tonight.
It's how you
Um,
recover, right?
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. And just as I'm watching the clock here, I know we're coming to the end of our time here. So I just want to make sure there was a space for you guys to leave any last words of encouragement or some nuggets out here for the folks.
Well, I would just like to say sometimes it's false economy to try to do it yourself because your objective is to get the tenants out of there as quickly as possible, and the tenant's objective is to keep you from getting them out of there. So there, more than ever, people they're what you're doing is being scrutinized. So you may need legal assistance to make sure things get done exactly the way they're supposed to be. What about you,
I
Joe?
think that's really I think that's really well said. Also, I know there's a lot of strategies that are out there, but you first have to know what your numbers say and what your numbers tell you to do. Because, like you mentioned, if you don't put that buffer in place, you are gonna have some time where your property's vacant and or you might need repairs. But again, and you might have to pay for assistance from people like yourself, right? But you have to have that team. And so, when I have some people like Ryan on the call, I want him to see that, you know what, you can't do this alone. And you're going to have issues, not if, it's just when. Because when you're dealing with the human element, you're actually taking on their lifestyle as well, right? So if they have an issue at work, guess what? Now you have an issue at your work because they can't potentially make the payments to you. So if they're sick or anything like that, so you actually are kind of like a foster parent in a way, or you're adopting people, right? So you have to really be mindful of that, and it's not like you can disregard it because once they say those magic words, I need to talk. Do you have a minute to talk? Or you're like, oh man, that's not no. Well, it's not going to go away, right? So bad news doesn't get better with age. That's what I have learned. So the one thing I would say is make sure you have a team because it's your ability to recover quickly, like you mentioned, in real estate, and to minimize your losses, right? To so that your balance sheet will still stay in good form, right? So you make sure that you're making that profit. But again, it's your team because you're going to have those smart tenants that actually know a lot more, might know more than you. They could have been landlords that decided, you know what, I'm tired of owning. I just want to rent myself, right? And they show up with more documentation than you have. You ever thought about that? So uh, that's what I would say. And I'd say keep learning. But I agree with you, Ryan, because of our environment, I think being asset based and focusing on assets that will appreciate with value, that's not so tied to currency fluctuations, but it's asset based and that things that people have to have. And the one thing is people have to have a place to live. And with more people that are moving, especially the DFW area, there's a premium put on land and also, I mean, housing. Housing, is always going to be something that's going to appreciate, in my opinion. just because you have a scarcer resource. And so I would continue down that path. There's different strategies you can use, not only rentals, but with the owner finance that Gaylene will close for you. There's a multiple strategies that we'll talk about in other podcasts, but I would say continue to acquire and navigate through our real estate space, and then you should be okay, because at the end of the day, we are helping people, right? That's our goal. And you get into these conflicts, and I think that's what's so interesting. A lot of times the landlord is the victim, even though it's a business, but a lot of times, when you end up in eviction court, it's probably not the first time they've interacted. It's probably like the 10th, right? So it's the 10th time that you've actually heard that story, and then you're now fed up with the story. And so we go running to Gaylene, get us out of this. We're tired of it. So I would agree. I'd say keep on migrating through this space. Again, the real estate for life moniker is there's so many things to learn in real estate. But again, it boils down to the people you interact with, right? You first need to have a team that will help you. And then secondly, you need to understand how all these processes work. But you have to have the experts like a Gaylene to help you navigate through those difficult times. And so thanks, Gaylene, for joining us tonight. Thanks, Ryan. And we'll continue this again, and I hope to see you at Dallas REIG. That's the DallasREIG.com. So register, and you'll be able to see more of the topics like this, but also you can join us at our meetings and then our real world events. So I look forward to seeing you all again.